Ricky Bo, closer, of course, and we see some closer issues with the Phillies already, just 1 week in. But it's really interesting to see if they, in fact, make a change. And Pete Mackinnon has kind of said, I'm going to talk about it today. What would be the change? Because it seems like Neris is in a really important spot. In fact, they called on him yesterday for 4 outs. So do you move him to the closer spot? We'll ask a former closer, Ricky Bottalico, Comcast Sportsnet, pre- and post-game live. As Ricky, already just 1 week into the season, it looks like the Gomez train is running out of fuel.
Yeah, it seems as though it did run out of fuel real quick. Anytime a manager says, I'm going to have a talk with him, that's usually not a good thing. I mean, that's when, as Jemar Gomez, you try to avoid him as much as you possibly could today, because there's a good chance that somebody else will be closing this afternoon or tonight.
Is that the move they need to make? Do you think this is, already is the time, or have you seen enough?
He doesn't look comfortable, to be quite honest. I mean, he's got good stuff. It seems as though he really doesn't have the put-away pitch right now. And the other thing is almost afraid to throw the ball over the plate. And, a guy like that should be looking for ground balls. His ball is flattened out. It's a lot straighter. It doesn't have that hard sink to it. We saw it with Zimmerman yesterday. Just a floating fastball that was absolutely crushed. And I just think you make the change. I don't think it will really faze him. I think the question will be is where is he going to go in that bullpen?
Ricky Bottalico with us. So, Ricky, Mike and I talking, he just threw out the name Hector Neris. Is that who you'd like to see in that role, or do you think maybe Benoit, who I think would fit in that role since he's closed before? Who would you like to see in the closer role?
Well, it depends on what way they're looking at it. Are they looking at the here and now? If they're looking at the here and now, I think you go to Benoit. If Pete is looking at the long term, I think you go to Neris. I mean, it's just a 1-2 punch. I mean, those guys have been really effective in the late innings, so you give somebody a shot here. I'm not Pete. I don't know what he's thinking, but I will tell you this much. Either one of those two would be a better choice at this point.
Yeah, you brought up another good point, though, Ricky, is what happens to Gomez? Because theoretically, if you move Neris there, Gomez is not going to fulfill the 8th inning role the way that Neris does. And if you move Benoit to the back end, you're basically putting Gomez, in that 7th inning spot. And you're, yesterday you saw that they went to Benoit first yesterday because they thought he could get the lefties out. And you had a whole bunch of problems because they don't have any lefties in the bullpen. So the domino effect of what to do with Gomez is a really big underlining story here.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I start to think, well, sixth or 7th inning, maybe a multi-inning guy, because I think he's really got to get his stuff straight because he's way off of where he was at the beginning of last year. I just think you put him in there and you get him some multiple innings. It gives him a little bit more time to relax, take the stress away from him, and just let him pitch and see if he can't work himself out. I mean, Bob McClure's obviously got his work cut out for him, considering he's going to have to just go in there and really be a mind guy with Jemar Gomez. But I see probably 6th, 7th inning at best.
Yeah, and Ricky Bottalico is with us here, former Phillies closer, now Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game live. Neris, I mean, is he too valuable for you to move into that role right now?
I like what he's done in that setup role. I mean, he has done a little closing last year. It wasn't great. So I don't know. If I'm the manager, I'm going to Benoit right now. I mean, pretty amazing that a guy of his age and his stature and how long he's been around is still throwing as hard as he does. And I don't think it'll faze him being put into that role. I think with Hector, I think he's so comfortable in that 8th inning role that I may just keep him there. And I know it's one of those things that it's like, well, he's shown enough late in games that he can close. Yeah. But the 8th inning is just as important as the 9th. And if a guy's comfortable there, you just keep him there.
Yeah, and the fact that they went to him for 1 out in the 7th yesterday, too, really shows he's kind of the linchpin to the whole bullpen. They asked him to get 4 outs. I mean, if you lose that and you're just holding on to him to the 9th, who knows how often they even get to the 9th.
Well, he's the gun out there. Let's face it. He's the one guy that could shut people down, and he has the strikeout pitch. So, I mean, that's kind of a definition of a closer per se. But if Pete wants to use him in multiple type innings, he could do that from the closer's role too. I mean, closer's role is not necessarily the 9th inning. I mean, I know that it's kind of evolved that way, but you don't have to use it that way, and Pete knows that very well. I wouldn't doubt if whoever's fresh out of those two is the guy that's going to close.
Ricky Bowe with us, Ricky Bottalico. Ricky, what did you think of Nola coming back off of injury on Friday night?
I thought his first inning was extremely shaky, but then you put up 12 runs and you have a 12-run lead. I think it makes things a lot easier. I think he got into a nice little comfort zone because of what the offense did for him, and I think it got him into a groove of the ball game. I mean, he pitched well after the first inning, so hopefully he could carry that over into his next starts because – let's face it, he's a guy that all the eyes are on him right now, and they want to see him stay healthy. I think that's the biggest key for him is staying healthy and showing that he's healthy all year long.
Yeah, obviously, Nola, Friday night in a game that's hard to read. He was up 12-0 before he got onto the field there. I mean, that's not – I guess that makes things easy, just throw strikes here, so it's hard to get a read on him. But what an offensive output on Friday night. You ever been a part of a game like that?
I've never said. I mean, that was fantastic. The crazy thing is they were 9 for 9 at one point. It was 12-0, and the Phillies hitters were 9 for 9 with 4 walks and 2 sacrifice flies.
I don't know.
That is nuts.
It's crazy. I don't know if you heard during the broadcast, Crucky, they had talked about Guthrie, and T-Mac said, have you ever called one of his games? He said, yeah, I think I did one of his games a couple of years ago. He gave up 11 in that game in the one inning, and then
It was May of 2015. He gave up 11 runs in one inning.
Yeah,
although he made it through the first.
Yeah, that's what, he gave up 10 before they he didn't get through the inning. They gave up 10 before they got him out, and then obviously Nola comes in there. So Friday night they get that, and then you win the series against the Nationals, which one weekend it's a good feeling to get something like that. But tonight you got Eichhoff going, and he's kind of the guy that we've talked a lot about with you, Ricky. And his first game he was okay, but what are you looking for out of Eichhoff in terms of tonight and for this season? Where do you see him in a rotation long term? Is he a number 2, a number 3 guy? Where do you look at him?
I see him as a number 2, and on weak teams, I see him as a number 1. This is a guy that can pitch. I mean, he's my I would say my favorite starter. I love watching him pitch. I love his demeanor out there. I mean, if he gets banged around a little bit, he doesn't care. He just comes back in his next start and makes his pitches. Isn't that the type of starter you want? That's the guy I want on the mound. A guy who goes out there, he's a bulldog. He wants the baseball. He just wants to go out and play. And I think with his pitches, he locates very well. I mean, he'll give up a solo home run here and there, but the key is his solo. That's a guy that's going to keep you in a ball game for a long period of time.
Hey, Ricky, have you ever seen anything like what happened to Hellickson yesterday? I was at the ballpark. I know you were at the ballpark, and we weren't 100% sure why he was being taken out of the game. Then later I see the video, and I was like, like he couldn't open his hand.
Yeah, it was odd. I mean, that's an odd thing to happen, especially only, 70-something pitches. I mean, that is odd for that to happen. That's dehydration is what the bottom line is. I mean, there's no other way to look at that. I will tell you this. It happened to me once, but it was at fantasy camp. And I had just thrown like 16 innings, and then I had a ball hit to me, and I couldn't throw it over to first base. So, I mean, it does happen. It's a fatigue thing and a little bit of a dehydration thing, but I've never seen it happen in a big league game like that. I've seen basketball players with legs, but never a hand.
Ricky Bottalico, you think they need to find a lefty then still in that pen?
Well, I mean, you got Joely Rodriguez, but, how much does he really give you? Is he a left-handed specialist? They really don't have one. I mean, Adam Morgan's quote-unquote the long guy, so, you really don't have one, and you just kind of move on from it. You got Hector Neris who can get lefties out. Benoit can get lefties out. I mean, when I pitched, there was a year it was myself and Real Cormier were the 2 setup guys, and neither one of us really came out for lefty-righties. So it's just a matter of who you have in your pen and if they can get lefties out, bottom line.
Yeah, Nishak doesn't seem like he's a guy who can get lefties out. He's tough on the righties. He's got that awkward, move to the plate. But, man, he shows the ball so much to the lefties, it seems like they don't want to go to him. That's why they went to Benoit early yesterday.
Yeah, he's kind of like that swing. He's got like a swing type pitch, and I think it's a lot more effective on right-handers because at times he's throwing from behind them. So, yeah, to left-handers, that ball must look pretty big coming in. So, Yeah, Pete has a good idea of who could get the lefties out and who can't.
Ricky Bottalico is with us. We talked a lot about the pitching. Obviously, Pete Mackanin said he's going to talk to the closer tonight, Gomez. We'll see if there's a new closer for this Mets series. But how about the offense? They scored all the runs the other night after struggling to score. So far, do you like the way that Pete has set this lineup up? He's got the lineup out today. Very similar. Hernandez, Kendrick, Herrera, Franco, Saunders, Rupp, Stassi getting the start at first base, by the way, and Galvez at short. But do you like the way that Pete has set this lineup up early on?
I actually do. I think that's the only way you really could set it up. I mean, you got to love what you're getting from Howie Kendrick right now. This guy, you know what I love about him? He'll just wear you out. He'll hit the ball to right center field all day long on you. And then if you finally throw one in, he'll turn on it. So he's kind of a scary bat right now. I mean, when you look up and down the lineup, you talked about early the first couple games, the 4, 5, 6 hitters did absolutely nothing. There is one guy in the lineup, Maikel Franco, who they got to get on track. This guy's pulling off of everything. I mean, trying to hit the grand slam with nobody on base is what he's doing. So, I mean, if you could get him going with this lineup right now, they're going to score more runs. So, yeah, I love what I've seen right now. Obviously, Stassi getting the start tonight, I think the one thing about that is Pete's just trying to get him that first hit and get him comfortable in the box because, I mean, the way he was hitting the ball in the spring, that's the reason why he made the team. But, you know, it's a little different when you get to that with the third deck on the stadium. So he's just trying to get him used to the major leagues and get him a start tonight. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and he looked really anxious yesterday in that role when he came up to bat. What was that in the ninth inning? He was swinging at everything.
That's a superhero role right there. I mean, you're looking.
Get your phone booth.
You know, you've been struggling. All of a sudden, you get this one hit, and you're a hero. And then all the weight is lifted off your shoulder. It didn't happen though. He looked really over anxious.
Ricky Bottalico visiting with us. Ricky, how about the job that Cesar Hernandez has done at the top of the lineup? Do you like him in that role?
I do. You know, there was one 2 games ago. I thought he could have tried stealing second base, but the pitcher was a little quick to home. But I think you're almost in a situation where you almost have to attempt it because, you know, if you get there, then a base hit scores you. You know, he's one of those guys who's got tremendous speed. He's just got to use it to his advantage. I do like him at the top of the lineup. He's taking a lot of pitches. He's running the pitch counts up on the pitchers. He's doing a lot of things well.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, as you mentioned, he takes a lot of pitches, which is something that in the leadoff role, you know, watching that game yesterday, you see where a guy like Worth is so important. He will not swing at anything, man. That guy is so patient. I think they talked about how he led the league in pitches seen, and that really put them in position to tie that game up because he just refused to swing at anything. And, of course, the Phillies were nibbling on the corners trying to get him to go. But, man, the patience he displays just shows you why he's a dangerous hitter.
Yeah, a guy like Worth, the one thing you got to be very conscious of, he looks in one spot, and if you put the ball in that spot, it's going somewhere. And it happened the other night when he hit the home run. You know, you don't throw him too many breaking balls because he's a very good breaking ball hitter. With Worth, I just try to hit that outside corner with the fastball and let him get himself out.
Hey, we talk a lot about Velasquez and learning how to pitch. What you think of his night the other night? He gets to 10 strikeouts, but only 4 innings.
I didn't like it. I really didn't, and I think the guy's got tremendous stuff. Yeah, he'll tell you himself. He struck out a lot of guys. That's great and dandy, but you know, not getting deep into games was his nemesis last year. So, you know, from last year to this year, it looks like the same thing in his first start. Hopefully, he could switch that up a little bit. He's got to be very conscious of getting people out early in the counts.
Do you see him a better fit as a closer, maybe long term?
Long term. Right now I do, unless he could prove that he could start lowering his pitch count and going deeper into games. If not, tremendous closer. Are you kidding me? Wow.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up because the Phillies seem to have depth at the rotation at the AAA level. You wonder if Velasquez is a guy that they're thinking down that road, like, hey, maybe we move him to that back end of the bullpen and we bring in a guy like Jake Thompson or Eflin or Pivetta who's pitching pretty well.
Yeah, I think they're going to give him this year to see if he can't figure everything out as a starter. If not, I think, yeah, you might see that switch made.
Right.
I mean, he'd be a tremendous asset to the bullpen. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I feel like I've been kind of waiting for that, for them just to get not fed up, but just like, you know what, this guy, so many strikeouts, but the pitch count is too high. Let's just do it. Let's just move him back there. But I guess it's that whole feeling of when you're a team that doesn't have a lot of expectations, the closer spot is always kind of overlooked.
Yeah, it's overlooked because I don't think there's a lot of credit that goes into being a bullpen guy anymore. I really don't. Everybody acts like anybody could do the closer's role, and we've seen in Philadelphia the last 2 years that's definitely not the case. But I think he's got the mentality, and he's definitely got the pitches to do it. There's no doubt about it. So, it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the season plays out. We'll see how his starts go. We'll see if he can't start lowering that pitch count, and if not, hey, you know what? There's a backup plan.
Ricky Bottalico, Comcast Phillies pre and post. We saved the toughest question for last. Ricky Bo, is yes a Hall of Fame rock and roll band?
No. Have a great day, everybody.